UFC Atlanta. By no means is this a hangover fight card coming off the big UFC 316 pay-per-view event. At times, we've came off big events like that and have had to crawl over to the UFC Apex and we were really feeling it. That's not the case. All right, I like this UFC ATL card. We have 3 former champions fighting on the main card, and Kamaru Usman, Rose Namajunas, and Cody Garbrandt, some OGs of the fight game. Besides that, I would say we have 3 blue chip prospects looking to go out there and continue to make a name for themselves inside the octagon. And Oumar Sy, Mansur Abdul-Malik, and Malcolm Wellmaker. And if you guys don't really understand the term blue chip prospect, just simply, I'm saying that those are fighters that have some real potential, okay? Real potential. They have shown a lot early on in their careers, and it'll be exciting to see them matched up with their opposition. Besides that, I'll also just say, even the other fights that I'm not really referring to, they're fun. They're fun fights, and they all... In the headliner, though, Kamaru Usman makes his return to the octagon, the former welterweight champion. He hasn't been in there in about 2 years. He's 38 years old now. He's taken on a fighter in Buckley that's on a 6-fight winning streak. Right? We know since Buckley dropped down from the middleweight division, he's looked really good. I would say that this is a step up in competition. I mean, you can respect the victory he just had over Colby Covington. You can kind of categorize Covington and Usman in the same grouping, right? 2 fighters at one point in time, not too long ago, a few years back, that were the top 2 fighters, or looked at as the top 2 fighters in this division, but they're past their primes. I will say this, though, if Buckley gets the job done here, right, he's on a 7-fight winning streak, and it's just hard to deny him. All right, the only thing that's in front of him right now, though, from him guaranteed to get a title shot after this victory, because I don't really know if that's the case, is the fact that you have fighters like Ian Gary, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and Sean Brady up towards the top as well. Right, I've been raving about how stacked the top of the welterweight division is right now, and that's the only thing that's in front of him. Okay, because I would actually say that even if he gets the job done here, I wouldn't expect him to get a title shot. And you could also throw Michael Morales and Belal Muhammad still in the mix of the cream of the crop in this division. There's a lot going on. I don't really know how it's going to play out. Nothing's been officially announced. I'm hearing rumors that Sean Brady's going to take on Ian Gary. I would love to see that. I mean, I think that the winner of that fight should really be in order for a title shot after that. But then what about Shavkat Rakhmonov? Michael Morales is looking phenomenal, but I still think he needs to put in a little bit more work. He's younger, and I think he needs to run a list of more respectable names. But I'm excited for it. You guys give me some feedback in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on who is going to be fighting for the title next against JDM. So I'm about ready to jump into this episode. We're going to slide right over to the first fight. If you guys all could, though, real quick, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Right, that's the biggest thing that you guys can do for me to help me take this show to the next level. Just click that button. Doesn't cost a thing. Just smash the like button, subscribe, guys. Go catch me on my social media. And I'll also say real quick, if anybody wants to work with me for my official plays, we've been heating up. Okay, guys, you can email me, shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'll give you further details there. I'm going to have some very special targets on this card. All right, guys, if you want to work with me for them, reach out to me. All right, let's go jump into the first fight.
The teller.
Kicking this thing off, we head over to the bantamweight division, and this is a fight that was just announced before I'm recording this segment here. Malcolm Wellmaker takes on Kris Moutinho. Moutinho, a lot of you guys are familiar with him from the beating that Sugar Sean O'Malley put on him. Although it did take O'Malley a long time to finally get him out of there, and Moutinho has shown some toughness through the years, we all understand that he is a pretty low-level fighter and probably a fighter that doesn't deserve to be fighting in the UFC. Right? He's jumping on a short notice opportunity here, and if I'm being blatantly honest, I think that I know the UFC is just using him as kind of a stepping stone, if you will, for Wellmaker to go out here and to flash in front of the Atlanta crowd in his home state here of Georgia. This is just an opportunity for him to build on his early hype that he's had in the UFC, and for him to continue to develop as a fighter, and eventually down the line to get more stringent competition. All right, Wellmaker is an absolute knockout artist. All right, he moves differently. We'll see how his game rounds out overall down the line. But right here, this is a tailor-made matchup. Moutinho, we talked about some of the toughness that he's shown. Okay, but take a look at his 6 losses. He's been knocked out in 4 of them. All right, and he's been finished by lower-level fighters too, even besides Sugar Sean O'Malley. I know that he did just get some redemption against Johnny Campbell, but he was knocked out by Johnny Campbell back in the day. He was finished by Guido Canetti in the first round in that final UFC fight before getting this opportunity to step down in the octagon once again. I really don't want any of you guys getting caught up in the potential thought that, oh, this is a more primed Moutinho now at 32 years old, and he left the UFC, but now he's coming back more prepared after being on a little bit of a winning streak and all that. I don't want any of you guys thinking anything like that. When you dive into the level of competition that he's been going out there and defeating, it's very low level, right? He got a redemption victory over Johnny Campbell, but now Campbell was around like 36, 37 compared to when they fought initially when he was more in his prime. And Johnny Campbell, I mean, just another fighter that I don't know how much respect you want to put on his name. No disrespect out there, but these are low-level fighters when you're talking Elijah Harris, Jay Presley, Matthias Silva, Antonio Castillo Jr. Okay, good for you. You're going out there, you're finishing them. Malcolm Wellmaker is a different beast here. And Malcolm Wellmaker is a nightmare matchup for Moutinho because Moutinho is there to be hit. All right, this is southpaw versus southpaw. And I think that Wellmaker is going to find the mark and he's going to get him out of there. All right, I think that Wellmaker gets another knockout victory here. He's too fluid with his movement. He's going to be way more twitchy. All right, he has a longer reach as well. He has about a 3-inch reach advantage. There's just a lot of things checking out for Wellmaker here. Even though Moutinho has the experience advantage, and if you want to nitpick, you could say, oh, Wellmaker only has 9 professional fights, and how's he going to look if he gets tested in certain aspects of his game? What happens if Moutinho tries to take him down? I mean, Moutinho hasn't shown anything there, all right, first off. And I would also say Cameron Simón is a similar fighter to Moutinho, but a way better version of that. And the way that Wellmaker was able to find the mark, I mean, I'm a believer that this dude is a sniper and he's going to find the mark here. I'll even mention the victory he had on DWCS where he knocked out Adam Bromwald. Bromwald is a fighter that needs to prove a lot more, but he bounced back with the victory after that L. I think he's a more dangerous fighter than Kris Moutinho. I'm just not a believer in anything that Moutinho brings to the table here. And I think that Wellmaker will knock him out. Now check this out. This should be fun. As I mentioned earlier, there were a couple fights that were just recently added to this event, this being one of them. I don't have odds on this fight. Nor do I have odds on the next 2 fights. Okay, but that's fun because I get to speculate where they're going to open up and where they should be. And I'm going to say that Wellmaker, first off, I'm going to say he's going to close, that this is going to be bold here. Maybe it's not that bold, actually. I'm going to say Wellmaker is going to close around being a 7-1, 8-1 favorite. I think he's going to be like a -700, -800. He's going to be a huge favorite. All right, so you really can't do anything with that money line unless maybe you jump on it extremely early. What you could try to look to do is maybe call him on a first round KO, second round KO. Maybe you can get a decent line, but realistically that line's going to be inflated as well. But make no mistake, I have Malcolm Wellmaker getting a finish in this fight. He's going to knock Kris Moutinho back over there to Cage Titans. Vanessa Demopoulos takes a short notice call up. She's coming up in weight too from the strawweight division up to 125 to take on Jamey-Lyn Horth. Horth was supposed to be taking on Teresa Bleda, a very young, promising fighter. Right, a fighter that came off DWCS a little bit ago. She's just 23 years old, and I think it's fortunate for Horth that she now gets this matchup because her UFC career is potentially on the line, and I think that Bleda would have had her way with her. Demopoulos, I mean, this girl, she's low level, right? She's kind of fun to watch, a little bit based off her personality and her toughness, okay? But she's lacking in many aspects of her game, right? I'll say she's tough, but her striking is not refined. It's low level. She's undersized. She's definitely going to be undersized here, even coming up in weight. And you think about the last performance she just had against Talita Al-Ansar. She was pretty much dominated. She was dominated by Jacqueline Amorim. She was submitted in the first round. All right, so even though she's a fighter that's known for having some BJJ, she really struggles down in the mat as well. It seems that she gets caught up laying on her back too much. And then it's also the case in the cage as well, right? So she ends up on her back too much at times. And she's also snuck away with some victories that she probably shouldn't have got. Right. And I'll give her credit for the victory over Silvana Gomez-Juarez because that wasn't one you could say where the judges actually got it wrong. But she was cracked with the big strike. And I mean, if Silvana would have just slowed the pace of that fight down, I think that's a fight that she gets her hand raised the vast majority of the time. But instead, she showed to be an amateur down there. And, no disrespect, but she was a little bit in over her head and she got caught with an armbar, showcasing some of the offensive jiu-jitsu skills that Demopoulos has. But I don't think that those skills are going to be enough to really threaten Horth. Horth has never been finished. She's a lower level fighter as well, but I really like the size advantage that she has here. I could see Horth getting on top of Demopoulos and kind of taking some rounds like that. As far as the striking goes, if Demopoulos could use some solid footwork and close the distance, it could potentially play out somewhat close. But even then, I think that Horth gets the better of those exchanges, especially if she fights from the outside with a nice reach advantage going on here, about a 5-inch reach advantage. She's much taller. And I think that this is a solid opportunity for Horth to get another W in the UFC. And her other victory was over Ivana Petrovic, which has aged horribly, as Petrovic just lost to Juliana Miller. The Haley Cowan victory that she had on in her debut, you could mention that. But too, Cowan is a fighter that you could say she's tough, but she's very low level as well. She's a very green fighter, and this is an interesting fight. And this is one, like I said earlier, I do not have a betting line on, which makes it fun. I expect Horth to be the favorite here, specifically for the fact that Demopoulos takes his fight on short notice and is coming up in weight and is undersized. I think that Horth probably, I don't know, I think maybe she'll settle in like around being a minus 150, 160 favorite. I don't know, I could be wrong there, but I do expect her to be a slight favorite here, a moderate favorite, and I think that that's warranted, and I'd rather be on the Horth side of things from a betting standpoint, unless she's just a massive favorite and you're getting Demopoulos at some ridiculously plus odds, and maybe there's some value there, as this fight could play out closely. All right, I want to be clear there. I know I'm talking a lot about how Horth will win this fight, but Demopoulos has made a name for herself participating in fights that play out closely. I just think that she's going to be on the short end of the stick. She shouldn't get her hand raised here. I'd be kind of surprised, but give me Horth via decision. Demopoulos' toughness will come into play. She should make it to the final bell. Horth wins, let's say, a unanimous decision. And then the last fight that I don't have odds on, one of the more recently added fights to the card, is Phil Rowe and Ange Loosa. This should be a close fight. I'm expecting the odds to be close on this one. All right, so just to kind of throw that out there before we even dive into it. Phil Rowe is on a 2-fight losing skid. He did lose the Neil Magny fight via split decision. Right, he's been active on the grappling scene. He just took an L against Jake Matthews in his last MMA fight, his last one in the octagon, and those are respectable fighters. Ange Loosa, he's really been having a tough time when he's been in there as of recently. He just lost to Gabriel Bonfim, and then we all know that he lost to Brian Battle. Right, he was kind of getting dominated. Right, Battle was starting to pick up the pace in that fight, and then of course we had the unfortunate situation with the eye poke. But it seemed very transparent that he could have continued to fight even after the fight was stopped, and they had the little beef there as Battle called him out. Ange Loosa then began to press with his eyes wide open. He was looking to cause some riffraff in the cage, and I do believe that it was clear that he could have continued, and he kind of took the coward's way out. And that's kind of important to highlight here because Phil Rowe is not that type of dude. I think that Rowe should have more toughness here. I've seen Rowe dig deep late in fights. I was sitting cage side for his fight against Nico Price. I've mentioned that one before. It's kind of cool. I think I was sitting right behind his brother or whatnot. I was 2 rows back from the octagon, and he was over there looking at his brother or his cousin or his friend, whoever it was. This one dude was sitting there by himself, and he was kind of shooting some sign language at him as the fight was going. And that fight was decently close up into the 3rd round, where he took that one over and he finished up Nico. All right, so he's had some solid performances. He's went out there. He knocked out lower level fighters like Orion Kosi and Jason Witt. I like the massive 6.5-inch reach advantage that he has here. And I think that it's imperative that he fights from the outside. I think he needs to use his footwork and fight from the outside. Ange Loosa has decent striking. Okay, he's decently talented offensively. But if you lead the dance, he'll kind of fall in line. So I really want to see Rowe fighting from the outside, peppering him up. And at times we see Loosa kind of lead with his forehead. He'll kind of be looking down at the mat. And I think that Rowe can touch him up a bit here. Okay, but by no means is this a lock of the night for me. I think this is a very close fight, but I will side with Phil Rowe, who looks a lot like Will Smith, right? He rocks the old Will Smith haircut, and boy, has that whole Will Smith persona type thing aged horribly. As I don't know if we have any Will Smith fans out there, but that dude, you guys don't want to hear my thoughts on him. I'll tell you that much. So, all right, I don't have any odds on this fight. I expect Phil Rowe to close as the favorite, probably open and close as the favorite, although I think the line will be pretty close. Maybe we see Rowe around minus 150, 160. Maybe nothing too crazy going on based on the fact that Rowe's lost some fights. But when you're talking Jake Matthews and Neil Magny, a fight that played out very closely, I think that those are fighters that are a step ahead of Loosa. And I think that Rowe should be hungry to bounce back with a very much needed victory here, right? If he loses this one, I don't know what's next for him. I know he does some stuff outside of just fighting, but I think that he really needs to get a W here so he could try to build his brand and hang around in the UFC for maybe another year or two. He's 34. He probably has a little bit left to offer right now. He better go in there and deliver. So give me Phil Rowe to get a decision victory here. I think he wins a decision. I don't think he finds a finish. Now, of course, this fight was supposed to take place a couple weeks ago on that Michael Morales versus Gilbert Burns Apex card. And unfortunately, Bellato had to withdraw due to a herpes outbreak. Looks like he's good to go now. And looks like he's been enjoying himself over in Brazil throughout the years. And, if anyone's been following me on IG, I've been featuring my cousin on my page quite a bit, Casual Dan. And it's kind of crazy, some of the predictions that he's been throwing out there. I mean, he's been very accurate. He's been so accurate that, it seems like when he's calling out fighters to be exposed, like he did with Bo Nickel and a couple of these other fighters, some of these fighters aren't even making the walk, right? He just called out, what's her name over there? Macy Barber. I think that she caught wind that Casual Dan said she was going to get exposed and she didn't make the walk. When he called out Paul Craig, all of a sudden there's this weird situation going on here. And if you guys follow me on IG, you guys know I'm being sarcastic and just having some fun. And actually, I need to take 1 second to say, because I've noticed that some of you guys actually take me serious in some of my sarcasm. Like when I said there's no difference between New Zealand and Australia and how they're big fans of the Outback Steakhouse and Foster's beer. I thought that was a dead giveaway, but guys, don't take me too seriously, please. I like to banter. I like to have some fun. All right. But I already broke this fight down, and Bellato, big time favorite here, but I'm telling you guys, don't completely overlook Craig. We've seen him make a career out of showing up and pulling off the upset. I mean, you take a look. I don't really even need to tell you guys know the deal, but we'll just quickly highlight some of these victories that he got that he should have never had. Like when he went out there and submitted Nikita Krylov, when he finished Magomed Ankalaev with the second left in the fight, defeated Jamal Hill, a former champion. I mean, there's a lot of respectable names on his resume, right? He submitted Kennedy and Chukwu. You could also mention the Mauricio Shogun Hua knockout, even though Hua was way past his prime, but still, it's kind of funny when you look at like victories over Andre Muniz. He's not a fighter that you just want to completely overlook. He has nasty jiu-jitsu. He's aggressive. And if we've seen one mistake from Bellato, I'll say it has been his striking defense, which kind of throws a wrinkle into the mix, because is Craig gonna knock him out? This is a light heavyweight matchup. You never know. All right, you never know. I don't expect that to be the case, but I do want to highlight and just say we have seen Bellato make mistakes there, and that kind of cost him in that last fight against Crute. All right, he should have been a clear step ahead of Crute, but he made a mistake and he was hurt in that fight, and that ended up pushing that fight to be a draw. Right, he had to dig deep, and he did take the latter 2 rounds, but that's a fight he should have dominated. And if he would have just kept it standing from the get-go, he would have finished that fight. He has solid striking. He's technical offensively, but you take a look at his 2 losses too. He got knocked out by Vitor Petrino. And both of those, right, leading up to the Dana White's Contender Series loss against him and the finale of those 2 fights. And those haven't aged that well. Petrino is a fighter that's really flaked out. But I think that Bellato, if he fights with his head on his shoulders, this is a fight that he should bag. Okay, this is a fight where he should be, if he's patient, he should be able to find the mark, and he should be able to get Craig out of there. I'm going to say he gets a knockout in this fight. I'm going to say that he TKOs Paul Craig, a fighter that has been vulnerable to be finished via strikes. And you take a look at the numbers too. Interesting stuff going on here as Bellato has been landed on at 6.31 compared to the high output of 6.28. Technically, he's absorbing more than being landed, but it's not a good defensive number there. Craig has interesting numbers as well, absorbing more than he lands. Both markers pretty low, but when it's all said and done, I expect that Bellato could hurt Craig and get him out of there. So Bellato is a sizable favorite. He opened up right around a -380. The line is trending back the other way. He's a -350 right now. No matter how you spin it, there seems to be a good amount of faith that he gets the job done. I wouldn't hit the alarm as far as a trap alert, but I would caution you guys to go out there and fade a fighter like Paul Craig when you're backing a fighter in Bellato who has at times been unreliable and inconsistent. We'll see how that one plays out. That line's a little high for my liking, arguably value on the dog. This should be a banger here in the bantamweight division. Both fighters, Enrique Simón and Charles Jourdain, come into this fight off of a much needed victory. They both did it in different ways. Simón came into that fight against Basharat as over a 2-1 underdog. He went out there and he knocked him out in devastating fashion. Jourdain just had the submission victory over Victor Henry, and he was going into that fight on a 2-fight losing skid. He was just knocked out in the prior fight against Gene Silva. We all know very well how dangerous Silva is these days. So we look at that fight with 2020 vision, right? Because by no means do I look at Jourdain as a fighter that has chin issues. That was the only time we've ever seen him finished via strikes. Okay, not just in the UFC, but throughout his entire professional career, right? And he's only been finished twice. And he's been in there quite a bit, right? He's a fighter that's fought 25 professional times. And I think he's a durable fighter. We've seen him go to war many of times. And even though Ricky's coming off that big knockout over Basharat, I don't really look at him as a knockout artist. I really don't. I know he had one other pretty impressive KO where he went out there and finished up Rafael Assunção, who was getting up there in age. But besides that, he's a fighter that does rely on his grappling, his pressure and pace. He is a fighter that has a victory over Merab Dvalishvili, right? He submitted him, if you guys remember that crazy one where the clock basically ran out, right? And then in that 3-minute fight, but Merab was out, and that was a submission victory. That was a big one for him. He has a victory over Montel Jackson. That's a very respectable victory. We all remember when he dropped the ball against Faber and was finished up there. And I think Ricky's a good fighter. But when you look back to that main event fight he had against Song Yadong, I think that fight painted a very clear picture of who he is, especially when he's in there with upper echelon and talented fighters in this division. Yeah, it's the striking that kind of costs him, right? He gets outlanded, right? He's a fighter that's bouncing around and kind of relying on his cardio and toughness, but his strikes aren't the most straight. He throws a lot of looping type shots, and if you have solid footwork and you throw a lot of straight strikes, you can piece him up, right? And we saw that in the Mario Bautista fight. He had his legs chewed up a bit in that one. He lost to Loke Dog Vinicio de Oliveira. That was another L that he just recently took. And I think that I circle back to those fights because Charles Jourdain, if he fights a cerebral and patient fight, he does have talented kickboxing. The only problem with Jourdain here is that he tends to get involved in wars, and I could see Ricky kind of taking advantage of that. I could see Ricky getting some takedowns in this fight. When you look back at the match that Jourdain had against a higher level grappler and Nathaniel Wood, we saw him taken down quite a bit. He was taken down 5 times in 8 attempts. He was controlled for almost an entire round. I can see Ricky having some success in that department. And then just based off the fact that we see some development with his striking and Jourdain tends to involve himself in brawls, it's pointing me towards Ricky's side. But I do think that Jourdain is live here, and I think that this could be a wild one. We could potentially see a finish one way or another. But at the end of the day, I will settle in with a Ricky Simón decision pick. I'm going to say that Ricky wins a decision. Could play out closely, maybe like a split decision in a fun fight. And we've seen Ricky opening up right around a -150 with action coming in on him. He's like a -180 right now. That line, it kind of alarms me a little bit because this is a fight that I think really could play out closely. So I don't want to be chalking up a line like that. I really don't. I think that maybe people are putting a little bit too much merit into the victory that he just had against Javid Basharat. This fight really could be more of a coin flip, if you ask me. Jourdain has jiu-jitsu skills, right? He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. We'll see if Ricky gets a little too crazy shooting in with something wild. Maybe Charles can be an opportunist and catch him with something. Jourdain is a fighter that you take a look at his 16 victories, he has a couple subs in there as well. But most likely, I would say Simón can avoid that and push himself to a decision victory. We got a matchup of 2 Ultimate Fighter winners here, and Michael Chiesa and Court McGee, 2 fighters that have been around for quite some time. They're up in age. Chiesa now 37. He solidified himself in the booth. He's kind of becoming a respectable figure as far as that goes. He's a high IQ guy, and I kind of like some of the work that he's been doing as of recently. I think he's gotten in the good graces of the UFC. I mean, obviously getting a position like that and them throwing a fight like this towards his way, kind of like a legacy fight, if you will, right? I mean, you got to give Court McGee some respect here. And McGee is now 40 years old. He's extremely tough, right? This is a fighter that's going to come in great shape, even in his 40s, which makes this fight a little bit more interesting than some may be thinking off the rip. I think that this is a fight that has potential to play out closer than the line states, based off the fact that one of the real threats that Chiesa brings to the table is the submission threat, right? Out of his 18 victories, 13 of them have come by way of sub, right? He's pretty high level down there. I mean, he has nice long limbs, and he'll look to sub you in a variety of ways. Court McGee has never been subbed as a pro, okay? He's not a fighter that's easy to take down and dominate with grappling, okay? He doesn't fade out. He's not going to gas, right? So you can kind of, at least I would kind of scratch that avenue of victory for Chiesa off. I don't see him going out there and pulling off a sub. I actually don't. Now, yes, he can go out there and kind of out volume McGee. Yeah, he may be a little bit more nimble. Both fighters have the same reach, even though Chiesa's taller. All right, so I could see this fight playing out closer than some believe it to be. I'm telling you guys, McGee's coming off that Tim Means victory. Yeah, he has a handful of losses throughout the last couple of years, but when you actually look at some of the more recent adversity that McGee's been going through in the cage, it's due to the striking exchanges. As he has slowed down, we've seen him knocked out in 2 of his last 3 losses. An Alex Morono fight that kind of cost him there as well. He was getting touched up a bit. So yes, I can see Chiesa capitalizing on that, even though, I mean, you take a look at the numbers here. Chiesa only landing 1.81 strikes per minute, okay, but only absorbing 1.66. And that is due to the fact that he pushes a high grappling pace in his fights. But let's say he doesn't have success there. How do the striking exchanges play out? I still do expect Chiesa to have a little bit more gas left in the tank. Maybe he mixes in some elbows in the clinch and, he just gets the better of those exchanges, but maybe it plays out closer than what the line is saying here. So, and as we get over to the line, and just real quick, look at McGee's numbers here, landing 4.6 while only absorbing 3.59. And a lot of those numbers are in regard to fights that took place a long time ago. All right. He's in his 40s now. I got to highlight that once again, but you'll probably see him shredded up on the scales and coming in good shape. And he'll look to make this a grueling, ugly fight. And sometimes he lands a little bit here and there. He has that herky-jerky type striking. Maybe he can push this fight to play out closely. At the end of the day, though, I do have Chiesa winning this fight. He opened up as a minus 245. He's now a minus 340, so we see big action coming in on him. I think he does have more left in the gas tank, but I do believe this fight will play out closer than Chiesa being a minus 340, or let's say he touches like a minus 400, a 4-1 favorite. I think that this fight has potential to play out a lot closer than that. Give me Chiesa to win a decision. I don't think he finds the knockout on the older McGee that's been vulnerable to being finished via strikes as of recently. I don't think that Chiesa does that, but he does enough to get his hand raised. We have 2 hungry flyweight fighters set to square off here, both coming off losses, both at different points in their career. Cody Durden, 34 years old. He does fight out of Atlanta, Georgia, so you may see some kind of hometown edge going on for him. He's taking on Jose Ochoa, who just lost his UFC debut, but there's an asterisk next to it, right? He lost to Loner Kavanaugh, and that's a fighter that a lot of us believe is going to make a run in this division. He's a high-level fighter, and that fight played out pretty closely. All right, we'll circle back to that fight here in a second. Ochoa training at a shoot box. Shoot box is putting in some serious work these days. Interestingly enough, kind of led by an Irishman and Ian Gary. Okay, but I really do put a lot of merit into what's going on over at that camp, and I think that's why you're seeing young fighters like Ochoa start to already reach a level of skill that he has at just 24 years old with just 8 professional fights. He's a dangerous fighter. Now, in that Kavanaugh loss, you take a look at the numbers. It was actually Ochoa that outlanded Kavanaugh in total strikes 59-51, but it was Kavanaugh that outstruck him by 1 significant strike. And if you really just watch the fight, of course, you can't just always go off the numbers. I mean, I clearly had Kavanaugh ahead. One of the judges did give a round to Ochoa, or excuse me, 2 judges did. 2 judges had this fight 29-28. I think you could argue that. I kind of was leaning more towards the 30-27. I liked the work that Kavanaugh was putting out there a little bit more, but it was a close fight, and it did show that Ochoa was deserving of a lot of this initial hype that he's been getting. Some people are talking about how he is the future Charles Oliveira of the flyweight division with his fighting style and all that, and of course fighting out of shoot box. And in my opinion, he's a little different though as far as his style. I wouldn't say that Ochoa has that classic shoot box style. When you actually watch a lot of tape on him, he relies more on his kicking game than some of those other fighters. We know, like fighters like Charles, I mean, they pressure heavy and they use their hands a lot more than people think of when they just think of those Brazilians over there. They do have a high level kickboxing game, but Charles will pressure and look to land heavy hooks on you and throw nice heavy power jabs down the middle. I mean, he'll close the distance and uses his hands a lot. Ochoa, when you watch tape on him, he's more of like a freelancer. He's creative. He'll throw weird and wild type of kicks at you. And obviously he hasn't proven much at all as far as his submission game goes. We'll see. I expect it to continue to develop, but only 1 sub out of his 7 victories. And that's kind of important to highlight because Cody Durden is a fighter that has shown to be very vulnerable to being subbed. He's been subbed 4 times out of his 7 losses. I don't expect that Ochoa is going to go out there and really exploit him in that aspect unless he hurts him first and then we see a wounded Durden get subbed. I don't expect Ochoa to go out here and use grappling skills to pull off a sub, okay? I think that he would have to use his striking first and foremost. Maybe he hurts Durden. We know that Durden has those wrestling skills in his back pocket, and I think that it may be imperative that he has success mixing it into his offensive arsenal here. I really do. I mean, I know that we've seen growth from him with his kickboxing and specifically with his hands, but I think that if he gets caught up in a straight-up kickboxing match with Ochoa, I think that the younger Ochoa is just going to be a little bit of a step ahead. You take a look back at that Joshua Van fight that Durden just had. He was outstruck by a wide margin, right? He was outstruck 184-74. Obviously, Van is a whole different type of animal with the volume, but Durden was 2 of 8 on his takedowns in that fight, and as the fight progressed, he struggled more and more. So I really believe Ochoa should look to implement similar tactics there, just creating space, staying on his feet, and looking to get the better of the striking exchanges against Durden. And I have Ochoa, the youngster, getting the job done here. And a question that we got to talk about is, can Ochoa get a knockout over Durden or get some type of finish? When you look at some of the submission losses that Durden has taken, like when you think of the Muhammad Makayev fight, before he got caught in that sub, he ran into a flying knee. And of course, he was just knocked out about a year ago against Bruno Silva. So I think that Ochoa is live to land a finish in this fight, but I will give Durden the benefit of the doubt. I think he's going to make it to the final bell, but I think Ochoa's live to land a KO here, man. This young aggressive fighter is dangerous. But give me Ochoa to win a decision and get that first ever UFC victory. He opened up as a -138, and we see action coming in on him. He's now a -170 as I'm recording this. And it'll be interesting to see if that line continues to trend that way, because it could be getting to the point where the value is really on the dog. And I think that, I know some of you guys joke about not really wanting me to say that too much, but I mean, think about it here. If you're able to get a Cody Durden, let's say if you're able to grab him like as a +170, +180, with the potential he could mix in some takedowns and hold his own on the feet, at least for the fight to play out closely. He has the crowd behind him here. He's a crafty veteran, and he's really been barking a lot on social media and in some interviews. I believe this is the last fight on his contract. This is a big one for him here. I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to get cut or, the UFC doesn't re-sign him even with a loss, although that could be the case. But with a win here, I mean, we're talking him putting some serious money in his pocket, especially if he delivers and the fight's entertaining and he gets his hand raised. So he's very motivated. All right, he's more mature. He has more experience training at an ATT, which I know he spent a lot of time up in the Atlanta American Top Team. It's not necessarily the same as the Coconut Creek ATT. I think he's bounced back and forth, but I mean, he surrounds himself with good people. I think that he's live, especially if that line keeps trending that way. But I think the youngster at the end of the day is going to get his hand raised here, and I'll say he wins via decision. Hey guys, just wanted to say thank you for tuning in. As you guys know, your support means the world to me. If you guys could just smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, it helps me take things here to another level. And of course, if any of you guys want to get in touch with me, shoot me an email, DM me on Instagram, any recommendations for the show, anything you guys could think of. And of course, if you guys want to work with me, if you want my official targets, I can give you further information there. Hope you guys are all doing well. And back to the show. The former bantamweight champion of the world, Cody Garbrandt, steps back in there. He's taking on Raoni Barcelos. Barcelos was widely looked at as one of the true dark horses in this division years ago. And both these fighters have gone through so much adversity over the past years. Barcelos had a big bounce back victory in his last fight. I call it a bounce back victory. I know he had a W before that as well against Christian Quinones, but he had a big victory against Talbot. Talbot had a lot of hype behind him. And in that fight, he stuck to the game plan and really exposed the grappling deficiencies that Talbot had. He hit 8 of his 15 takedown attempts on Talbot. He controlled him for 9 minutes and 43 seconds. If you didn't already know going into that fight, I think we talked about that a little bit going into the matchup. Barcelos, Brazilian wrestling champ. All right, he's really a well-rounded fighter, not just in the cage when things are going good for him, but on paper, right? You look at a lot of the skills in his arsenal. I mean, he's a jiu-jitsu. He has jiu-jitsu accolades. He has the wrestling accolades, which are a little bit more rare as far as Brazilian fighters go. And then he has the nasty kickboxing. Now, the issue that I have with Barcelos is over the years, specifically starting right around the Timur Valiev and Victor Henry losses, I think that we saw a drastic drop in his reflexes and his reactions, okay, as he's aged. And I think it may have something to do with him sparring a lot and just being in a lot of battles. We see him kind of freeze up at the end of his combinations. And that could be a problem here because even though Cody's had his fair share of issues, which we'll talk about in a second, Cody is still dangerous and he can knock you out. And I could see Barcelos, as he's throwing combinations, if he gets caught up in, specifically if he gets caught up in a striking match, we could see him knocked out like he was against Oumar Nurmagomedov. It could be like a nasty KO loss that he takes. And you have to take a look at that Oumar KO because that was a devastating loss, right? The brain was rattled. It was hurt in a drastic fashion. He's now 38 years old. I do think that Cody can get a knockout in this fight. But if Barcelos sticks to a game plan, before I even jump to that, let me say this. Not even if he goes the grappling route, which I do believe he can have a lot of success against Cody, as we saw Cody struggle against Figueiredo a lot. I still also believe that another factor in this fight is that the chin of Cody is diminished a lot. And that all started with the damage that TJ did to him when he was on EPO and all those performance enhancing drugs. It's really a shame what he did to Cody. I think that he took Cody's career away from him in those two fights. Cody was just never the same again after the damage that he took. And I do believe that if Barcelos lands the mark before Cody lands the mark, Barcelos can actually knock him out as well. But then the other factor that Barcelos has going for himself here is I could see him getting takedowns and working the grappling as Cody looked really sluggish in that Figueiredo fight. Once he was eventually taken down, he just didn't have anything to offer. And then eventually he was submitted in the second round. That was on that huge UFC 300 card where he got caught in a rear naked choke. So I think that Barcelos has more going for himself in this matchup. There's more paths to victory, and that will have me side with the Brazilian here, even when he's 38 years old. Okay, I still will side with Barcelos just because Cody's 33, but his 33, it's a little different based on the damage that he took to Dillashaw. He has issues going on, man. And I don't know, he has other things going on outside the cage. I mean, I'm sure he's motivated to get a W here, but I think he's made a fair share of money. He's kind of like, he probably has more things going on outside the cage. I'm kind of just speculating. Barcelos to me seems like the kind of guy that's just a hungry competitor. Not to say Cody's not, but I think some of you guys know what I'm saying there. At the end of the day, though, give me Barcelos to get the job done. And I kind of find myself leaning towards a lot of decisions here. This is a fight I could easily see going under 1.5 rounds. I could see either fighter finding a finish. Barcelos may get a sub, may get a knockout. Cody can get a knockout. But at the end of the day, I think Barcelos wins a decision, with wrestling being a big factor in this fight. Mansur Abdul-Malik, in my opinion, is truly one of the more promising fighters that have been signed off of Dana White's Contender Series as of recently. Okay, we know episode to episode on DWCS, you see so many young, talented fighters that could potentially put it together and really have a lengthy career in the UFC, right? You could kind of say that about a lot of them, but when you actually put them under the magnifying glass and you want to separate the signees compared to other signees, I put Mansur up towards the top. Okay, this is a fighter that's very complete, right? He's a dangerous striker. Also note, it has him listed here as having a 74-inch wingspan. It's actually more like 80 inches. It's right around 79 and a half. That's an error there. Okay, so he has a massive reach advantage going in to this matchup and into a lot of his matchups. Okay, he could strike. He can knock you out. Out of his 8 victories as a pro, he's had 6 KOs. One question mark I had about him going into Dana White's Contender Series was the fact, and it's really a concern that everyone should have had, was the fact he never left the first round. Okay, then he goes in there against Wes Schultz. That fight just about made it to the 3rd round. There was a very high pace to it. And Wes Schultz is an underrated fighter. Okay, he's a talented fighter from the regional scene. He checks off some boxes. And it was Mansur that was the fighter that was looking fresher as the fight was going on. He never started to fatigue or gas out in that fight. Eventually, he found the KO. That was very promising to me. Then he follows that victory up after getting signed. He goes out there, finishes Dusko up in the 1st round. He goes to the 2nd round against Nick Klein. He looks better and better as the fight goes on. So this is a fighter that's fresh. He has like the traditional martial arts background, but he also has all the real fundamentals, the kickboxing, the boxing skills. He could wrestle. He has jiu-jitsu and all that. So, and the fact that he's just 27 years old, I mean, imagine what he's going to look like when he's 32. Okay, he's going to be a fighter that's fighting in the UFC for a long time to come. And this will be a fighter that will have a number next to his name one day. We'll see how far he could push it. Okay, on the other hand, Cody Brundage, this is a fighter that's very hot and cold. Okay, he's coming off a 1st-round victory over Julian Marquez. Make no mistake, before that, he was most likely en route to losing against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He was hurt badly. You guys know the story. He was getting hit to the back of the head. And yes, there's potential he could have survived that and then looked to have grinded Al Hassan out, who struggles with his cardio. But once again, we saw Brundage taking damage and realistically getting finished. He was submitted by Nickel, even though he had early success. The Jacob Malkoun fight, that was another fight. It was a DQ due to illegal strikes. He was en route to being finished in that fight as well. Okay, so you have to understand that these are both really TKO finishes. He was finished by Michal Oleksiejczak. He was submitted by Rodolfo Vieira. He's a fighter that's prone to being finished, but then occasionally he goes out there and he has these big performances like he did against Tresean Gore, which he knocked out Gore in the 1st round. Gore had some weight cutting issues going into that fight. He slammed Zachary Reese in his head as of recently. Okay, so when he does show up, he could potentially be dangerous, but I don't think that I need to go on too much about this fight. You guys know how I feel about it. I think that Mansur Abdul-Malik's going to be a step ahead, and as long as he doesn't make a glaring mistake in here and run into trouble, I mean, he's going to be a clear step ahead, and I think that he's going to finish Cody Brundage. I'm going to say that he finishes Brundage in the 1st round. You're going to see a TKO. You probably see Abdul-Malik, kind of controlling his back and posturing up and just raining down ground and pound, and you'll see Brundage kind of roll over, or the referee will stop in. Give me MAM, that's going to be his new nickname for me, MAM, to get a TKO stoppage, and it's going to happen in the 1st round. He's a minus 430. Interestingly enough, this line is dipping. He opened up as a minus 490, and it's coming down the other way. I find that very interesting. So people feeling that line was a little bit too wide to open up. I'm kind of in disagreement. I think he should be like a 5-1 favorite. So hopefully that line continues to dip, and that could be a solid parlay piece. I like him to get the job done there. Edmen Shahbazyan takes on Andre Petroski at 185. It's kind of crazy to think that Shahbazyan is only 27 years old. He had a very early start to his UFC career. Came off Dana White's Contender Series. I think he was on the show when he was like 22. And the UFC really threw him to the wolves. It was kind of unfortunate, really, if you ask me, the way that they kicked off his career as he started to take those L's against veterans like Derek Brunson, Jack Hermanson, Nasruddin Imavov. What a talented fighter he is. I mean, fighting fighters like Anthony Hernandez back in 2023, obviously taking L's in all those fights. I would have rather have seen the UFC kind of slow-paced Shahbazyan. I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because he's starting to get a train on the track here, and he could obviously right the ship and start to really make some noise here as he cruises into his 30s. This is a fighter that could definitely be ranked moving forward. He's coming off a huge performance against Dylan Bucka. The striking is looking really crisp as of recently. The way he went out there and finished Bucka, who, yes, I have rated as a lower level fighter, arguably not even a UFC caliber fighter, but the way that Shahbazyan's moving in there, it's nice. And even in some of his losses that he's taken early on, he's looking great, and he's styling on these fighters, and he does break down once in a while, right? You think about the Mearshart fight, he kind of made mistakes being overly aggressive, and not just with his striking, even down in the mat. I mean, he's very aggressive. He'll look to finish you up a ground and pound. He'll look to pass your guard, and it cost him against Meerschaert. Meerschaert, one of the all-time UFC submission leaders. And you look at fighters like, I mean, I'm not going to run the list back again, but the losses that he's taken are against very respectable talent, and he was young. Okay, so I do expect Shahbazyan to start to take his game to another level. Okay, he has all the abilities in the world. Coming into Dana White's Contender Series, we were talking about the boxing accolades. He was like a Golden Glove boxer. He was respected in the jiu-jitsu scene as a young fighter over there in California. And then on the other hand, we have Andre Petroski, a fighter that has that wrestling background, a fighter that trains with a lot of high-level fighters up there in Pennsylvania. And fighting on the Ultimate Fighter, we knew that this is a guy that could start to put it together. He was really one of the favorites to win the show, if you guys remember. And ironically enough, he ended up taking an L to one of the more overlooked fighters of that season in Brian Battle. I think Battle was like one of the last picks. We now know how dangerous Battle is, so that loss doesn't look that bad. I like how the UFC slow played Petroski's career. They really did him a service. If you look at the matchups that he had, starting to work his way up to the bigger names, he was able to get some momentum going for himself. And listen, Petroski's a fighter that's came through for me before. He's put money in my pocket. As of recently, I had him as a dog against Vieira. I think that was a very big win for him. Vieira, a nasty jiu-jitsu player, a fighter that's starting to put it all together. I think that shows you how much Petroski's putting his game together. But even with that being said, I think that Shahbazyan should be a step ahead as they fight from range. I like the kickboxing skills of Shahbazyan a little bit more so. If Petroski looks to use his grappling and implement his wrestling like we have seen him do before, where he stalls and will just kind of control a lower level fighter, I think that's not going to be easy to do against Shahbazyan. Shahbazyan's skilled there. I don't see Shahbazyan just sitting on his back. He's aggressive. I think that if Petroski's going to get the job done here, I think it's going to be based more on if Petroski's going to get the job done, I think it's going to be based more on the fact that Shahbazyan makes a mistake and Petroski hurts him with a big strike. All right, so I actually think that Petroski's going to want to amp the pace up in this fight and to look for an opportunity. If he just kind of slow plays this fight, I think that'll play right into the hands of Shahbazyan. And at the end of the day, I do have Shahbazyan winning this fight. Petroski has been finished in all 4 of his losses, including the Ultimate Fighter fight there. So that's what makes this fight interesting, because Shahbazyan is a fight finisher. He's only gone to a decision once, and I think that Shahbazyan gets another finish here. When you think back to Petroski's fight against Michel Pereira, which I know Petroski took that fight on short notice, but the way he was ran through like Pereira was a steak knife and Petroski was warm butter, that was a little alarming. He also took a loss to Jacob Malkoun, got finished up with strikes there. I think that Shahbazyan can get him out of there. That's the way I'm going to go with it. I'm going to say Shahbazyan gets a finish on him. Petroski, if you're tuned in, I doubt you are, but I know you follow me on IG. You always show love. You know I got nothing but respect for you, but I got a lot of respect for the game of Shahbazyan, so it's not a bad L to take there. Shahbazyan's about a 2-1 favorite right now. I think that line's pretty accurate. I have it capped right around Shahbazyan being a -200. I think that he starts to put it together, and I think that Petroski's fighting style will play into the hands of Shahbazyan. Light heavyweight action here. We got the number 15th ranked Alonzo Menefield taking on Oumar Sy. I think we got to do it. I mean, let's cut right to the chase. Susie, hit the bells. I think that this is a trap alert spot, especially as we get over to the betting odds. Oumar Sy, a fighter that's still undefeated. Everyone's must eventually go. All right, unless you retire early and run away from a bunch of contenders that are working their way up to fight you. You guys know what I'm talking about there. But Oumar Sy, I am not that impressed with the last fight that he had against Da Un Jung. That was a fight where he looked very lethargic. It played out very closely. And I know that fight very vividly because I had serious implications going on in that fight. I had a massive parlay mixed in with that, and I was on the edge of my seat. But the thing I really didn't like about it was the fact that Sy looked slow at times. Okay, and Alonzo Menefield, we know that this is a fighter that can shut your lights out. All right, you take a look at his 16 victories. He's coming off that war against Julius Walker, a fighter that was making his debut at the time, a young fighter, a talented kid, but definitely has holes in his game. Menefield was able to dig deep and get the W there. That was a fight that could have went either way, in my opinion. Before that, a couple KO losses that Menifield took. Had a big victory against Jacoby and Crute before that. Now, the Jacoby fight, if you guys remember, it kind of showcases the threat of Menifield always being alive in a fight, right? Because he was losing every round, but then he would hurt Jacoby towards the end of each one and snag the round up. And even if, obviously, if he doesn't just hurt you and snag a round up, he can knock your head off. He can knock you out. We saw him do that to Misha Serkinov. We saw him knock out Askar Mazarov, if you remember that guy, who he had a fake resume. He worked his way into the UFC, but he's dangerous, man. Atomic Alonzo Menifield is dangerous, and if he lands a big strike in this fight, okay, he could potentially knock Sai out. But besides that, this could potentially be a fight that just plays out closely with them throwing down, similarly to that last fight that Menifield just had against Walker. I just think that Sai needs to show growth with his speed and his athleticism. Yeah, he's big for the division, and he's showing to be decently well-rounded against lower-level fighters. He looked good against, I mean, you take a look, right? Like his UFC debut victory against George Tokos. That's a very low-level fighter. That's a fighter that should be fighting a weight class down. He went out there, he took him down, he submitted him. But I don't put too much merit into that. And besides that, I mean, you could look at some of the work that he's done. It's just I don't put too much respect into these victories. I just think he needs to prove more. Okay, you could highlight the Enrique Da Silva submission victory. He shows to be decently well-rounded, but is he going to be able to implement those type of tactics against a fighter like Menifield while at the same time facing a huge threat? I really don't see a lot of betting value next to his name. As he opened up as a minus 430, now he's a minus 490. I just don't see value on that line at all. I think that is too risky. I will say that he gets the job done, and I'm going to say he wins a decision. Maybe you're looking at some overs in this fight, but I just wouldn't be mixing that into a parlay. You may get away with it, and you may put a little bit of money in your pocket, but overall, long-term, I think that that's a risky line to target at 5-1 odds against the dangerous Atomic Alonzo Menifield here. Sai needs to prove more to me. He's getting a little bit overvalued and overhyped based off his size and some well-rounded skills that he's shown, but dude's moving in slow motion in there. So since Thug Rose lost her strawweight title against Carla Esparza in one of the weirdest championship bouts we've ever seen, in a fight that she really should have took, she just needed to step on the gas a little bit. She bumped up to the flyweight division, and she's now 2-2. Okay, but you take a look at the two losses that surround her two victories. Okay, she came up short against Erin Blanchfield and Manon Fiorot, who are two of the top fighters in this division, and both of those fights played out very close. Essentially, both of those fights came down to a round. Okay, so I mean, I do believe that Nama Yunus is still fighting at the top of the fight game. I really do. I think that she still has more to offer. She's about to be 33 years old. She's not over the hump there, and you take a look at the two victories she had in between those two losses. Victory over Tracy Cortez and Amanda Ribas, which are two respectable fighters. And then you got Miranda Maverick, who is ranked 11th in this division. She's just 27 years old, but she's been fighting in the UFC for a while now. I would say she really hasn't lived up to that initial hype. If you guys remember when she first came in to the UFC, there was a lot of hype behind her, right? If you take a look at the betting odds that have been next to her name, she consistently came in as a big favorite. She kicked things off in a solid way. She finished Liana Jojua, finished her in the first round. She came over from the Invicta scene, which she had some respectable victories already on her resume, like Shauna Young, Victoria Leonardo, Deanna Bennett, Pearl Gonzalez. And I say respectable just in the sense, if you go back in a time machine to that time, those were fighters that were recognizable names in women's mixed martial arts, okay? She also came in, followed up the Jojua victory with the Jillian Robertson decision victory, which has aged very well. And a lot of people thought that she deserved to get the nod against Macy Barber. Okay, if you actually take a look back at the scoring, a lot of people had her winning that fight. I thought that she did enough to get the job done. Okay, and then it was the Erin Blanchfield fight that really had people looking at her in a different light, because at the time, nobody really knew about Blanchfield, and Blanchfield went out there and essentially ragdolled her. Okay, then she also took a loss a couple fights later against Jasmine Jasudavicius. Now, these are losses that she's taken, which we put a lot of respect in these fighters' names now, but at the time, they weren't as respected. So we all kind of turned our backs on Miranda Maverick. That's the way I look at what's going on. She's now on a 4-fight winning streak. Dione Barbosa is an underrated fighter. Andrea Lee is a crafty veteran. Jamey-Lyn Horth and Priscilla Cachoeira. lower level fighters, I still don't believe that Maverick has proven that she is on the level of a Rose Namajunas. And one of the issues I have is that at times her volume is kind of low. I think that Rose should be able to outstrike her and outpoint her there. Rose is extremely well-rounded. I think that if anyone gets the better of the grappling, it would be Rose. I could see Rose maybe mixing in a takedown. Okay, she's high level as far as her wrestling, her jiu-jitsu goes. I mean, she's super well-rounded. I feel much more comfortable in backing the former strawweight champion and one of the greatest women's mixed martial artists that we've ever seen in Thug Rose. So I hope that Rose has a little bit more left to offer the fight game and can look to maybe make one more run at fighting for the belt. And with Maverick being 27 years old, she'll have some time to right the ship even after this L here, and she could still look to build her way to some bigger fights. But I think we need to see a real leap in her skill set. I want to see some real growth shown in the cage before I start to take her more serious as far as making a run in this division. I don't see her being able to hang with the fighters like she lost to Erin Blanchfield. I haven't seen really anything that would make me think that fight plays out differently. I don't see her competing with fighters like Manin and other fighters at the top. So Rose, maybe she can take her game to another level. I don't know about that as well, though. I would say I still think that she'll fall short down the line if she gets rematches against those fighters. She's only getting older while those fighters are still young and getting better, right? So Rose probably never touches gold again, but she may be able to work herself to some big fights and will be entertained. And maybe she could find some finishes. I don't see her finding a finish here. I'm going to take her to get a decision. She's a minus 275. She opened up as a minus 245. She'll probably close as like a 3-1 favorite here. I think people are going to like her in this spot. And I think that it's actually a decently safe target as a parlay piece. I do. I think that Namajunas is the better fighter here. I think that she wins a decision. Here we go. In the main event, we have the return of Kamaru Usman. He's taking on Jaoquin Buckley. Of course, Usman, one of the greatest UFC champs we've ever seen, one of the greatest welterweights of all time. I mean, he's right there on the Mount Rushmore. He has been away for some time. It's been about a year and a half, and he's now 38 years old. I think it's important to start with that because that's the biggest factor in this matchup. Okay, Buckley has been looking good. He's 31 years old. He's on quite a winning streak, but I don't put too much merit into the level of competition. Okay, I give him his respect, but I want to see how he faces off against some of the more high-level fighters in this division. But the X factor here is how much does Usman have left in the tank? We know about the knee issues, and he's creeping up on 40. Now, Usman comes into this match on a 3-fight losing skid, but you could definitely put some asterisks next to some of those losses, starting off with that first L he took to Leon Edwards. He was up on the scorecards. He was about to defend his title once again, and we saw one of the craziest comeback Hail Mary victories we've ever seen, specifically in a championship fight. I mean, that probably takes the cake there. Then he loses the rematch and what was a pretty competitive fight, but he was a step behind. Then the Khamzat Chimaev fight, that one kind of ages well. He takes that fight on short notice, goes up to the middleweight division, and was looking better as the fight went on. Okay, so and Khamzat's really proving to be just a whole different type of animal. So that loss doesn't look that bad. You look at Buckley, like I said, I don't put too much merit into some of these victories. He was arguably en route to losing the Thompson fight. It was coming down to that third round. Then he hit the KO there. Colby Covington, a fighter similarly to Usman, past his prime. They used to be 1A, 1B, or 1, 2, depending on how you look at that. I mean, two of the top fighters in the division, but they're getting up there in age. They're not the same fighters that they once were. You also can't just completely overlook the fact that Buckley has taken his fair share of knockout losses, right? His last L up in the middleweight division was a KO loss to Chris Curtis. Alessio De Chirico hit him with that first round head kick back in 2021. Kevin Holland KO'd him in his UFC debut. I think that you would be mistaken just to completely overlook the fact that he has been KO'd a bit here and there, and Usman has underrated striking abilities. You never know if Usman can land a KO on him. Of course, Buckley's live to land his own KO. He has one of the greatest knockouts that we've ever seen in an MMA fight. I think that you really got to put it up there in the top 3. So, I mean, he is an absolute fight finisher, 12 KOs out of his 21 victories. Usman's just been knocked out that one time in that Edwards fight, but he's up in age. He's 38. I think that either fighter can land a finish in this fight. I've been back and forth with where I'm going to go with my selection here. And I'm going to stick to my guns here. That the biggest factor in this fight to me is the fact that Usman has been inactive and is extremely old. While on the other hand, Buckley is getting better and better as a fighter. He's 31 years old. He's just in his physical prime. I think that he lives and breathes this fighting thing, and I think that that's the biggest factor in this fight. I just think that the youth is going to pay dividends here, but I would not be surprised if Usman pulls off the upset, but I will settle in with a Jaoquin Buckley selection. He's proving to be very well-rounded, and I think that he can avoid being like taken down and out grappled by Usman for 25 minutes. That's another important factor because, of course, Usman has high-level grappling, but Buckley is proving to be well-rounded, and I got to stick to my guns here, boys. So I will say Buckley wins this fight. This is another fight where we could easily see a KO. Okay, like I said, coming from either side. But at the end of the day, I'm going to say that Usman doesn't get knocked out. I'm going to say Buckley wins a decision, and there'll be some real decisions for the UFC to make after Buckley wins this fight. As we talked about in the intro, I really am interested to see who Buckley gets matched up with next and how all the top fighters in this division get matched up moving forward. So give me Buckley to get a huge victory in the ATL. And you take a look at the betting odds here. Usman opened up as a plus 190. He's now plus 235. So obviously the action is coming in on the younger fighter in Buckley, who opened up as a 230. He's now minus 285. I'm not sure if I'm in agreement with the line movement, but I am in agreement with the decision based off where the money's going. I think Buckley gets the job done. And I want to root for Usman here. Another fighter from kind of like a different era, right? You think about fighters that are fighting late in their careers that were reigning champs. You think of like Anderson Silva back in the day, didn't have a lot of success in the later fights. When you really think about the aging champs that were so elite, not many of them had major success late at the tail ends of their careers. I think you could follow that trend there as well. And of course, the trend of just the younger fighters statistically having a lot of success against these older fighters like this. I think a lot of those signs point towards Buckley getting his hand raised. Give me Buckley to win a decision. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. I appreciate you more than you know for tuning in and showing any type of love and support. You guys know I greatly, greatly appreciate you guys. Got to hit you up with some parting words. I hope you guys all smashed that like button before you got out of here. And hopefully if you're new to the channel, you subscribed. It means a lot to me. And for my parting words here, just something simple. If for any of you guys that are taking care of yourself, working out, which I hope you guys all are, mixing in a little bit of cardio, keeping your heart healthy. You guys know, I think that's a big part of life, is taking care of your temple and whatnot. I'll say this much to you guys. Sometimes you get into the routine, even if for those of you guys that are consistently working out, you kind of just go through the routine too much. I find myself doing this. And one thing I'm trying to do, which I know makes a big difference, is focusing on the details. Sometimes you could actually save time and get better results. So for those of you guys that are lifting weights, try to just slow your workouts down. Make sure you're doing full range of motion and you guys are really getting a solid burn. You don't have to be in the gym for an hour and 30 minutes. If you guys are in there just for even for a small amount of time, make sure you're making each workout count. Okay. And you don't necessarily have to listen to my advice in that. There's people that specialize in this type of stuff that are bigger experts than me. I mean, I'm not a workout expert, even though I've been working out for a long time. And just go YouTube some guys. There's a couple guys that are doing some good things out there, and they'll pop up right to the top of your search feed. But make sure you're diving into all the exercises you're doing and the range of motion and just little tips that could take your workout to another level. I'll tell you guys that, and you guys will save some time when it's all said and done. This will enable you guys to be more successful and have a healthy balance with other aspects of your life. All right, guys. Much love to you all. Signing out. Teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller.